You probably saw, hopefully, you saw this on the tables outside. This is our latest print publication. We do a few of these a year on different topics. This one is on strategic autonomy. Now, we called it A Guide for the Perplexed, because I am perplexed. First with the definition, and then with the consequences of it. We have seen how walls are going up around the world. The China, US, EU, in the case of Russia for good reason, but also between allies in different ways. And so at the same time that allies are coming together more strongly in the face of all of these challenges, on the other hand, also there are new conflicts that arise as that happens. And each one, this is all a remarkable contrast to, does anybody remember Open to the World? Which was one of the three slogans of Horizon 2020 and in the beginning, Horizon Europe. 6 years ago, I believe, it ended. Now, that's no longer the case. There are constant discussions and restrictions that come up in different areas from all the different countries that affect how science and technology advance, that affect a researcher's ability to collaborate across borders and across sectors, and ultimately will have an effect on the speed with which we develop the science and technology that we need. So we in this are our international editor, David Matthews. David, are you here? Stand up so that you can see him. If you don't like it, talk to him. But David is the one covering, in particular, this issue of strategic autonomy. And in this book, he tried to give an explanation of what we think it means, could mean, for science and technology and research and innovation. So in addition, however, we include in it opinion pieces from 6 good friends. 2 of them are here right now. Graça Carvalho from the member of the European Parliament, and Riccardo Procacci from his company, GE Aerospace and Avio Aero. And also they are both members of what you might call our editorial board, the Technology Strategy Board, and there are other essays by other members in that. Just their opinions. Anyway, so that's what this is about. We welcome your comments. But let's get down to the point of this discussion, which is specifically how strategic autonomy relates to climate issues. Now, so to begin with, I would like to introduce the other panelists. First, Clara de la Torre. She's the Deputy Director General for DG CLIMA, the climate part of the European Commission. Beside her, more formally introduced Riccardo Procacci, the Chief Executive Officer of Avio Aero and Vice President of GE Aerospace. Welcome. Beside him is Adel Gammal, the Secretary General of the European Energy Research Alliance. And I just mentioned before, Maria de Graça Carvalho, member of the European Parliament from Portugal. So, with that brief introduction, Clara, tell us, please, about the Green Deal industrial strategy, the technology fund, and all the rest of it that has been recently advanced by the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm glad to be here. Always putting together science, climate, technology. That's a good team. What is this? With this strategy, you remember that the Green Deal we're saying, and it was not only a slogan, it is the growth strategy for the union. But a growth strategy has different components, and one, which is very timely, and I'm sure we'll come back why it's timely, is the industrial strategy. We know that we have to undergo a very deep transformation, and last year we had, we have had the COVID, but then we have had the shock of the war, and there already we started with Repower EU. What is Repower EU? Repower EU is saying, listen, we have to have some strategic autonomy. Had we undergone this transformation more quickly, we would not be in the situation we are today. So we started already putting the different pillars that we need to expand our energy supply, to deepen our transformation, and to save energy. Then we still need to do a number of things, and we have had some important trading partners in the world that are taking some action, and that's their choice. And so the Commission last week said, okay, together, because we should not forget that we have already recovery plans, which are very much supporting this transition and this economic recovery. The Commission put on the table a sort of industrial strategy very much directed at clean tech in view of the decarbonization of our strategy. And as you might remember, it has 4 important pillars. One is, as we all know, any economy needs to have a friendly environment, a regulatory environment that we know very well for innovation. With Graça, we've been discussing that many times. We need a foreseeable future. We need to accelerate permitting. So this is a bunch of activities which are made there to facilitate that the economic actors invest more and more quickly in this economic transition. Then we have a second pillar, which is I can't remember which were the order of the communication, but the second pillar, which is linked with the skills. This year, you know, this is the year of the skills, and we know that with this transformation that we are undergoing with facing the climate change, there are new jobs, new technologies which need different skills, and we need either to reskill our workforce or we need to upscale. It is clear that it's not the same thing working in a coal mine that working in manufacturing heat pumps. So that's the second part of our strategy. Then all this needs money, and there we need to have sufficient money, but also more accessible money. And there, if we look at the EU money, we are trying to make InvestEU more accessible with easier procedures, more readable, dare I say. But also we are facilitating, while keeping the principles of the single market, we are facilitating the state aid in a number of fields, like production of capacity for production of renewables, or transformation of the industrial tissue for decarbonization, so that the member states can, in a more agile manner, support this transformation. This is in the short term, because in the medium term, you've seen that there is mention of a sovereign fund. You know that this summer we'll have to undertake a review of the MFF, and it's in that context that we are working to make a proposal on how to go about a sovereign fund for the industrial transformation that Europe needs. And there is a fourth pillar I need to, the important one which brings us today, which is precisely one of the reasons brings us today, which is open and fair trade. Because you know that the European Union is an open economy, not only an open framework program, but an open economy. You know that we have free trade agreements with many parts of the world. We intend to continue doing so, but we have to be clear that we are working, we have to have a fair trade. And we have to make sure that we are all playing with the same rules. To start with, afterwards I'm sure we'll discuss about many other things. What I would say is that the Union is making, you can always do better and more, but as much as we can for the time being for our energy independence, But this does not mean that we are stopping cooperation. We know very well that the challenges that we have ahead of us, health challenges, but certainly climate challenges, can only be addressed in a cooperative manner, and that competition and cooperation are not mutually excluding. It's a question of balance, it's a question of tools, and it's a question of on what we cooperate and on what we compete.
Okay, a couple of quick questions. The technology fund, how big? How much money?
If I knew. That we have to convince, I think we have to convince first the finance ministers.
Yeah.
We have also to see, you know, that we have made, this college has made a huge progress. I mean, nobody would have expected 2 years before it happened, the Next Generation EU program, with the union going to the markets and buying debt. So I'm confident that we'll find our way. But I don't know.
Let me quick bring into this discussion Graça. So, is this going to fly in Parliament?
As you know, probably we are preparing a resolution on this topic for to be voted next week in plenary in Strasbourg. I would say that there are some elements that we like on the communication of the Commission, but we are quite, at least my political group, the EPP, we are quite critical about the communication.
Which part of it?
First of all, we feel that is too late and too little. Too late because we have been asking for such an action since we had the public and private partnerships of the joint undertaking of Horizon Europe. Was the right time. When was the first industrial strategy that the Commission put forward? It should have been something like this at that time. So we lost here immense amount of time. It took a pandemic, it took an energy crisis, a war, for the Commission to react in this way. And first we had the Inflation Reduction Act from the US, and only after all this we have such a communication from the Commission. But okay, it's here, so it's better now than never. But second, we think that is too little because the first part, the regulatory part, is announcements that we already knew, that the energy internal market will come out in March, it will be a raw material act, so things that we knew already. The good part that I like there is the permits, and I hope that is a reality, that we speed up the permits,
Speed up the permitting,
so that things can be go faster. One thing that we don't...
It's not yet actually a regulation proposed to the Parliament yet, is that right?
No, not yet.
It will come.
Yeah, but the permitting is
It's part
very
of the
much
red already.
Sorry?
In the Renewable Energy Directive revision, there is already there a speed up of the part for renewables.
Exactly.
But we understood from here that it's going to be more general than the renewable.
because it has member state autonomy.
Yeah.
Okay, so but let me stop you there for a second, and I want to come to you, Riccardo, and
We have
Adel.
more complaints.
More complaints.
Go ahead, Graça.
We'll vote on them after.
He missed the digital, and digital is and the data, and is going to be part of the clean tech question. We understand it's target on clean tech, but the digital is a very important part of the same issue. Second, on the budget, we don't feel, at least in EPP, that our priority should be a new fund. We have plenty of funds that are not used at the moment, both from the Recovery and Resilience Plan, from the new period from 21 to 27, still in many member states have not been used. It should have been a focus to increase the amount of the budget that is put in the right priorities. And for us, the right priorities is research, innovation, competence, skills, infrastructures, the necessary infrastructures for this, and that is not fund, the good regulation that is simple, flexible, and that is not the tendency yet of the Commission. We continue to receive very complex, detailed regulations. We are finalizing the energy efficiency in buildings. It's so detailed, so micromanagement on the situation, so that are the conditions that we think that are important to give an answer.
Okay, well, let's stop with the complaint list there at the moment. You'll have a 10-minute riposte at this point. but before we come back to you, Clara, let me, as I say, come to Riccardo and Adel, because, I mean, you mentioned the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act in the U.S. Of course, that was the final trigger that made it happen. And we just published today an interview that David did with Hugh Brady, the new president of Imperial College London, who is calling the IRA an, quote, existential threat to the EU and the UK. And so, Riccardo, you are with a multinational that's dealing in many countries. What do you make of this situation that's developing with the governments all competing against each other?
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. We've been looking at this REA, and we think that for us is an opportunity in the sense that it'll give us more stimulus to do better. Ultimately, when you look at it, it's RAA, but it's really focused on the green transformation. So it is. It means that the United States are really bought into the green transformation. It's a system of incentives and not of taxation, which also tells us a way that probably we should go. And is very simple to be applied, which is also another thing that should give us indication here in Europe how we go about these things. So we should look at it more as something. I don't want to say to emulate, but to get some inspiration from. Than actually as a threat. If we do nothing, and if we don't get that inspiration going, then it could be a threat. But
do you think that we will see companies moving across the ocean, which is the EU concern?
We spend some time looking at it, and we don't see it as an immediate threat if we don't stay still.
Yeah.
If we react in a proper way, which is a positive way, is the way of simplification in how we can access, companies can access funding. If we make this funding available, I don't see why we should run away.
Okay, all right. So Adel, if I come to you then, what do you make of this competition for virtue, is it? I don't know, that's happening.
Okay, well, thank you first of all for inviting me again. Well, I see it, I mean, I really listen to what you have said. I see it very much as a threat, and
a threat.
Yes, because beyond the actual effect it will have, and this we don't know yet, and there is this Net Zero Industry Act that needs to be deployed and so on. It means that we're back in a world of protectionism, and this is for me a very important signal because it changed completely the context in which we have to evolve. I like very much this phrase, which unfortunately is not from me, but from a previous leader of the German SPD, which says, EU is the last herbivore in a geopolitical world of carnivores. And I think it encapsulates very well a lot of what has happened in the past. And I would just point out, and where, of course, I mean, as a preliminary remark, maybe I would say...
Adel, that's a terrible analogy because we know what happened to the dinosaurs.
Yes, but not because of the carnivores in particular.
Yeah,
okay, because of climate change.
Yes.
But okay, no, it's a terrible analogy, but I want to say, of course, I mean, we are for collaboration, and my organization, the European Energy Research Alliance, is exactly its mission is to catalyze research collaboration across the EU member states and associated countries to support a climate neutral society by 2050. This is our mission. So our mission is about research collaboration. Now, I was in the PV sector between 2008 and 2011.
Photovoltaic.
Photovoltaic sector. Yeah. And I remember very well this incredible, how could I say, push and development of the technology, of the knowledge, and of the European industry. And we were technology leaders at that moment. There was a conjunction of technology leadership in the market, which was created by the Renewable Energy Directive and the incentives. And what happened is, in a period of 2 years, between 2009 and 2011, the whole of the industry disappeared completely to China. And when I look at Repower EU, which is targeting 600 gigawatt of PV installed by 2030, in 7 years from now, we are 200 now, cumulative capacity. Let's remember that China has a quasi-monopoly on PV. So we are totally dependent on China, for PV at least. And it was in the press, I think last weekend, that the Chinese government is considering export ban on a number of technologies which are key to PV. So the wafers, the cells, the ingots. It's terrible. So we need to have that in conscious. So what I would like to say is, of course, we need to collaborate. And Fatih Birol made it very clear in the Breakthrough Agenda 2022, just before the COP27, that international collaboration was absolutely key to accelerate transition. The IEA mentions that in a number of technologies, the cost reduction could go twice faster up to 2030 if we collaborate globally. But we need to ring-fence that and to establish the proper rules so that we're not eaten up by those who are not playing on the level playing field.
So now, Clara, equal time. I mean, do you want to respond to any of the comments that have been made?
Yeah, on the digital, Graça, you're right. I mean, we always talk about this twin transition. I think it's not because it's not mentioned explicitly, but that we are not doing anything. But we know that this year we have had a huge digital package on the table. We have been discussing about data, about the infrastructures, about the ownership of data, the management. So I think this time we are concentrating on the transformation of the production energy, of the production industry, of the manufacturing, and of the production. The capacity production for renewables. And this entails, of course, digital technologies, as you know very well. So I think it's part of. So I would not be worried about that. Now, whether we have waited long, I mean, you can always do things better and more quickly. But as I was saying, let us not see. I would not see this industrial package, this industrial strategy as just one thing that suddenly is happening. I mean, we were working already with Repower. It's true that there was a war, but I mean, it's the catalyst. Yeah. We didn't come up so quickly with that if we had only started thinking at that moment. But you have to find, very well in politics, you have to find the good rhythm. So we found that. And before that, we have had, remember, all the huge amount of public money that has been put on the table for the modernization of our economies, which is all the New Generation EU and recovery plans, is really huge amount of public investment, both union and national, which has been there. You know that 37%, I think, of this amount has to be in climate-friendly expenditure. So I would say it's the whole Green Deal, the Repower, that is a sort of response to the state in the world.
Can the EU afford it? I mean, to come to Grace's point, she says there's plenty of funds elsewhere.
Sorry,
could I make a bet as to whether the money will come in the end from the member states? I don't know.
That, as I was saying, I don't know, but I'm confident. I mean, the money is coming already in the national plans.
Yeah.
No? It's money.
Yeah.
It's a huge amount of money that's already on the table. And when we talk to private finance, for example, what they tell us is not the scarcity of money. It's the issue of bankable projects.
Yeah.
That's also
And
another
that's
problem.
affected by the regulation that you're just talking
In one
about.
way,
the
it's
permitting.
affected by
Yeah.
regulation, by permitting, by I mean, having the wheel of change behaviors.
Yeah.
Change so it's not only a question of amount of money.
Okay, so all right. So Riccardo, if I could come to you on this point, but we haven't got to the kind of the more the philosophical question, which is, does it make sense to be talking about strategic autonomy for Europe if you're talking about net zero? If you're talking about climate, I mean, don't you run the risk of having duplication of effort between allies, between US, Canada, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Europe?
Well, does it make sense? Well, you know what? The answer is no. If you call strategic autonomy something like a technological autarky or protectionism. If the definition of strategic autonomy is somewhat similar to autarky and technological autarky, yeah, then it doesn't make sense because it means that you need to develop everything twice or thrice. Well, if I'm a believer in the transatlantic relationship, this is the world I grew up with and my firm belief. And if you think about this, every relationship is worth as much as you are able to bring to the table. Okay? So if strategic autonomy means sitting at the table of innovation, whether it is ecological transition or anything else, and you're able to sit at the table bringing value, then it changes completely. Take what we do with our company. We are participating. We are in the aviation business. We make engines, right? We participate to Clean Sky, Clean Aviation, to the various research programs that we are available, where we have funding available here in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And we develop critical enabling technologies with European, or in this case, Italian, Polish IP. And we contribute this technology and this unique IP to engines that will encompass the technology developed in the US, developed in Canada, to develop the engines of the next generation, the engine that will cut emissions 20, 30%. Well, if you look at things like that way, then strategic autonomy means being able to participate, being able to bring unique value with our technology to global projects. That is what we believe is the right thing.
Okay, all right. Graça, to come to a point, if we talk for a moment then, a little bit further, on the issue of the single market then. So this is actually one of the topics that we talked about for this report. When you're talking in this field, is strategic autonomy in the end about protectionism, or is it something more collaborative, such as Riccardo was suggesting? And what is required to make, if it is collaborative, what's required to make the EU position stronger?
I fully agree what Riccardo said. Actually, I was the rapporteur of the public-private partnerships that includes clean aviation, and they are designed in this way. They are open to the ones that can bring excellence, that can bring added value, and for that you need to have competences. You need to have a strong research base. You need to have skills, engineers, researchers in the field. And an ecosystem to be able to participate. And that should be the strength in Europe. And this is the way I see the strategic autonomy. We need to develop that strength that we have in aviation in the other fields. And this is key. Second point, internal market, and to complete the internal market is a crucial point for our autonomy, because we really need to join forces and more European EU internal market, and to try to bring to this internal market, or at least partial to this internal market, the ones that we cooperate, our neighbors, Norway, Switzerland, UK, Canada, why not West? So in terms of cooperation on the standards in the emerging technologies, probably the others are more difficult, but the new technology that we are developing, let's try to influence the way it is done, so that our market is a bigger market. We are an economy that is oriented for export. Of course we import, but if is a two-way flow, and this is what made Europe a good economy so far, and we should continue with this process. So internal market and cooperation with standards, with the ones that we have good relations, is a very important word.
So for instance, in hydrogen at the moment, there's a lot of work that's not been done on standards for the internal market on hydrogen, right?
Yeah, we need to do standards in the internal market. We have a long tradition of research and innovation in hydrogen. I'm a researcher in the field of energy, and I have led consortiums on hydrogen 15 years ago, exactly defining everything that it needs to be done. There is in many countries, in Germany, in Holland, very high level research and innovation on hydrogen. So we just need to put it in place, and we need to define, and we need to influence the global standards, that we do not lose that influence to others. Is a nightmare scenario is that the standards are completely different from the European ones, that are Chinese and US, and we are out. That is, no, we need to be in the game. We need to be part of that global standards, mainly in these emerging technologies, in research and also in digital. And that is a big effort that we need to do, and we need to join efforts. So we are in a difficult time and a transition time for many reasons. That is not the point in this discussion. So we need to join efforts inside the EU and with the ones that we will deal more closely, and not to be apart. That is wrong.
So Adel, let me come to you, and then I'm going to come to you for questions as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just want maybe to bounce on what you've been saying. I think there are two dimensions which are very different. The first one is the collaboration with the external world, and we need, of course, to foster that, but we need to do it in a smart way, which protects our own interests. And that means also that we need to have integrated policies which looked at research and innovation, but also at industrial policy and trade policies that are interlinked together. And in the past they weren't, which was one of the problems, I believe. But when we look internally within the EU market, I think on energy research, there's a political platform called the SET Plan, which is a wonderful platform, but it's, in my view, totally under-leveraged. I think that there is much more collaboration possible between the EU member states than it actually happens. And so I think we need to optimize that absolutely, because we are an important player and an important market. And so if we want to have this critical mass and this market on the global market, and this weight on the global market, we need absolutely to leverage our internal collaboration. This is really a call for increasing that very significantly.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, go ahead.
We're asking about affordability, and hydrogen is one of the issues. Let us not forget that we have the ETS, as you know, is a system of carbon pricing. Here there are billions of euros Part of them come to the Innovation Fund. So remember, we have a huge investment, 40 billion euros until 2030, that we invest in clean technologies, in decarbonizing our industry. But all the rest, this is a small amount, all the rest goes to member states. There are billions of euros that can be invested and should be invested in the next legislation. It is compulsory that all these yieldings are used for the transformation. So we can afford it, and as you say, we can also, we should also be using part of that money to cooperate more internally. Okay. Hydrogen being one of the stars of this cooperation, also with outside world, but we'll come back to that later.
Okay, all right, okay. Let me, are there comments or questions from you? Yes, there's a hand right here. Please say where you're from.
Steleva, University of Warwick, Institute of Global Sustainable Development, United Kingdom. So here comes my question. You've been discussing here strategic autonomy. Would you not say that strategic autonomy in itself is a wicked problem, especially in the complex world we live in today? And especially when we start drilling into what strategic autonomy may potentially means, we suddenly, disappear in this world of national interests and strategic interests of member states. So how do we deal with then strategic autonomy in trying to bring more cooperation, both internal and external?
Any reaction to that?
I can have a first reaction. Both as a reaction to the pandemic and the reaction to the energy prices, we could see that there was a unit between member states that was not so easy before. So we made Europe more united. The difficulties that we went through, at least these two crises, we came out with more union between the member states. So the joint purchase of the vaccines, now the measures to tackle the prices of energy, it was possible that everyone was on board. So I wouldn't say that we are going in the way of getting more difficult inside the union. Now we need to do the same with countries outside the EU. We need to join efforts with countries outside the EU.
But it is a wicked problem. So
yeah, it is. It is. But
that is to say, the classic definition of extremely complicated with
but sometimes we do better the complex systems than the simple ones.
the genius of the EU on this. Excuse me. Another question in the back. Yeah.
Yes, hello, thank you. I'm Giorgio Clarotti. I'm working in the European Commission in the Health Department. I would like to address the issue about companies going to the States because that's where the money is now. I think that's what they should, to get the money. But in the end, it's about markets. Today, in America, being sustainable is not the priority of Americans. Ford is building a 3-ton F-150 truck with batteries. It's not the best way to do it. Who is voting?
I want to get one.
Who is voting Greens? 17 European member states. Who has cut its gas consumption by 20%? European citizens. Who is ready for sustainability because we're the smallest continent? It's Europe. So in the long term, the fact that America is doing the IRA, I think is going to be to the advantage to the Americans. 20 years ago, Europe wanted to develop the ESDAC to emulate what America was doing with NASDAQ. I advised them, don't do it. Europeans are not good at innovating, disrupting, fast, breaking things.
Okay,
let
me stop you there.
The question is, do you agree with my analysis that in the long term, we're winners? Thank you.
Any view, any reaction?
Well, I mean, I personally, I gave my view in the beginning. I don't see, we don't see, we started it, we don't see an immediate threat, but we need to learn something about how this IRA is done and implement it here, especially when it comes to how simple the system works over there, which is not exactly the same here in Europe.
Uh-huh. Clara?
Let us think of, I mean, I wouldn't put things one against the other and who is going to go here or there. Let us be more constructive. Hydrogen, I was mentioning. We are building a number of partnerships with a number of countries in the world, with Egypt, with some countries in Asia. We need the hydrogen, they need the hydrogen, they have the renewables. Our companies are interested in investing here and investing there. The hydrogen is going to be produced in Europe and somewhere else. It's going to be consumed in Europe and somewhere else. Why would, I don't see, I agree very much with Riccardo, with the companies we've been talking. Yes, they say, listen, you have to do something with your innovation fund and other things, but I don't see an immediate, it does not mean we have nothing to do, but we don't see an immediate threat of all the investments going somewhere else. We have to be careful, but we are building this partnership not only with the United States, as I said, with other parts of the world, which are as important.
Okay, all right. So I stop here, and thank you very much. We shall come back to these topics often in our pages in Science Business. And so read, please. And thank you very much to our panel.